Jake is the name of the protagonist of the story that we are going to explain. A sad story that we wish we didn't have to explain, but that we feel the need to share to make the world aware of the fragility of our little ones and how unfair life can sometimes be. Jake's mother's name was Maura, and she had been out of work since her son was born. They didn't have the money to hire a nanny, so she and her husband decided that she would stay home to take care of him. Her husband was the one who worked for both of them, and with his salary, they had enough for the three of them to live modestly. They were a humble family that could not afford great luxuries, but at least they had a roof over their heads and a hot meal on the table every day. Jake was only 5 years old when the events took place, but from the time he was born, his parents knew that he was a special child with a level of intelligence far superior to that of other children his age. One of the things that caught his parents' attention was that Jake began to imitate everything they did. If his mother was cooking, he also tried to do it and imitated her with a plastic bowl and his toys. If his mother was writing on a piece of paper, Jake would try to do it. At only 2 years old, he could write his name without help and was beginning to read some words. He was an exceptional child and his parents knew it, but their limited resources did not allow them to take Jake to a special school where he could meet other children like him and where he could develop better. They were very sad that they could not give him what he needed. That's why his father accepted another job that required him to be away from home for longer hours, but that paid better. Jake didn't understand why he was seeing less and less of his father. "Why isn't Daddy here? Where is he, Mom? He used to come every night and we would have dinner together. Now I only see him a couple of days a week." "Daddy is working, sweetie. He works a lot to be able to give us everything we need. It's just a temporary thing." His mother lied to him to reassure him, but to no avail. Jake got used to his father's absence, but that made him more and more dependent on his mother. He followed her everywhere and did everything she did. The father spent more and more time away, and there was 1 week when he didn't return. He worked transporting large goods all over the country, and that sometimes meant traffic jams or delays in delivery, but his wife would call him on his cell phone and he wouldn't answer. "Where is Daddy? Is he coming soon?" Jake would ask every week when the weekend came, and his father hadn't returned. His mother always told them that he would be back soon, that it was just a work-related delay, but she herself didn't know what to think anymore. Days went by, and as the boy's father still didn't show up and there was no way to contact him, decided to call the police to try to find answers. The call was very long and they made her wait several times while they checked the data she gave them, but finally she got an answer. It was not what she expected though. "Mrs. Maura, we regret to inform you that your husband is currently hospitalized at our facility. He suffered an accident while driving due to a sudden heart attack. We've been informed at the hospital that he is now in an induced coma to help him recover from his injuries. But he is in a very serious condition. We are sorry," were the words of the woman speaking to her on the other end of the phone. But Maura had stopped listening as soon as she heard the words heart attack. She felt she wanted to cry and her chest ached, but she couldn't do it. She had to stay strong and composed so Jake wouldn't notice anything. Her son was too young to understand what was happening, and she couldn't tell him that his father was on the verge of death. It would only make him suffer, and that was the last thing she wanted. When she hung up the phone, she made a mental plan quickly so she would know what to say to Jake without him worrying. "Have you found Daddy? Are we going to go look for him? When are we leaving?" asked the excited little boy, thinking that his mother had finally found his father. "Jake, honey, you're going to have to stay alone for a few hours. Mommy has to go out," she told her son as she held his face with both hands. In reality, she knew it would take quite a bit longer to get back from the hospital, but she didn't want to alarm the child, nor did she want to tell him anything about his father until she saw him in person. She didn't know how long it would take her to get back or what she would find. She thought about leaving him with a trusted neighbor, an older lady with whom she had a good relationship, but she knew perfectly well that Jake would not accept. He never accepted to stay with strangers. He only wanted to be with her or with his father. "Okay, Mom, I'll wait for you here and be good, but promise me you'll come back?" "I promise, my love, but you have to promise me something too. If I don't come back, let the neighbors help you. Promise me." The boy hesitated. He didn't understand why his mother was telling him that, but he agreed. His mother hugged him tightly and kissed him on the forehead before leaving him alone. His mother rushed off to get to the hospital where her husband was admitted as soon as possible. The hospital was half an hour from her house, so it wouldn't take her too long to get back, although she couldn't know that. She didn't know what she would find when she got there, but neither did she know what would happen to her during all that time. Luckily, her son was a very smart child and knew what to do during the first few hours she was away. The first few hours passed, and the boy was still in the same place. He had not even moved to drink water or go to the bathroom. He was paralyzed, waiting for his mother, watching the door to the street in case she and his father returned. But they didn't. The hours continued to pass and it got dark. Jake couldn't stay awake any longer and fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, everything was still the same. The little guy was starving and finally moved to go to the kitchen and try to eat something. He had spent a lot of time watching his mother imitating her, so he knew more or less what he had to do to prepare a plate of food. The first day, he survived on cornflakes with milk and some bread he found in the cupboard. His mother always made it for breakfast and snack, but that day it became lunch and dinner as well. The days continued to pass, and little Jake became more and more distressed by his mother's absence. "Mom will come back, she promised me," the little boy repeated to himself as he sat in the dining room waiting for her. After several days, all the cereal and milk were gone, so he looked in the cupboards. He found several sacks of rice with which he could feed himself for several days. He had seen his mother prepare it many times, so he tried to imitate her in order to prepare a hot meal for himself. The boy cooked by putting rice in a pot and pouring water over it until it boiled. However, due to his inexperience, the rice always remained half-cooked. The little boy was so hungry that he ignored the taste of uncooked rice and ate it even though it was still hot and burned his tongue. Then he would wash the dishes, just as his mother did, and sit back down on the couch to wait. He did nothing but eat, sleep, and wait for his mother to come in the door. The days continued to pass, and his mother had been gone for more than 10 days. Jake began to despair and often cried, looking for his mother in the middle of the night. Neighbors heard the boy crying and soon realized that something strange was going on. They knocked on his door for hours to try to find out what was going on, and although Jake refused to open the door at first, he finally gave in to their fear and sadness. Seeing the situation, the neighbors took pity on the boy and wanted to help him by offering him shelter in their homes. Others were even willing to adopt him if necessary. However, the little boy always refused, saying that his mother would be sad if she did not find him at home, so he had to wait for her to return. The neighbors decided to help the boy as much as they could, but they couldn't help but worry and wonder where the parents were and why they had left their 5-year-old son home alone. The situation was getting out of control, and the neighbors wanted to alert the police to what was happening. However, a neighbor friend of the family asked them before calling the police to let her try to talk to the boy. She knocked on Jake's door for minutes and begged him to open it. The boy, who remembered what his mother told him just before she left, eventually gave up and opened the door. He was exhausted and starving. The neighbor came into the house and was frightened to see the state in which the poor boy was living. She sat down next to Jake and tried to reassure him. The woman had known Jake since he was born, so she knew perfectly well that his mother would never leave him alone without any explanation. The neighbor was an elderly lady, about 70 years old. Her name was Suzanne, and she was very nice. She was a widow and had lived in the building for many years. Jake always talked to her when they passed her on the porch, so she was the only neighbor he allowed in the house after days of waiting. "Don't worry, honey, I'll help you in any way I can. You're not alone anymore. Now everything will work out." She helped him take a shower, made him dinner, and then told him a story that got him to stop asking for his mother and fall asleep. Afterwards, when she was sure the boy was not listening to her, she called the police and the hospitals to put out an APB for the boy's parents. The police told her they should wait, and at the hospital she called, no one seemed to know anything about the child's mother or father. She decided to wait until the next day to continue her search and fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, Jake was again very worried about his parents and asked Suzanne if he could go see his mom yet. "Not yet, honey, but we'll go very soon," she said as she stroked his back to reassure him. Although the truth is that she herself did not know what was going to happen, nor if she would be able to find his parents. But she did find them, although after hearing what the police told her, she wished she had never found them. "Mrs. Suzanne, we have located the child's parents. However, we have to inform you that neither of them has survived, and that the child will not be able to return with them and will be passed directly to the relevant authorities." "Wait a minute, what do you mean neither of them survived? Both parents are dead? How can that be?" Suzanne was very upset and inadvertently raised her voice, causing Jake to hear her. The father had been hospitalized for several weeks after a car accident due to a heart attack and died from the severity of his injuries, and the mother was found on the side of a road near the hospital where the father was hospitalized. Apparently, she was on her way home after certifying the death of her husband and lost control of the car. When she arrived to see him, he had already died. She was very upset and should not have been driving that night, the police officer explained calmly to Suzanne. Her voice sounded sad and she was worried about the situation of the boy who was now all alone in the world. "I just can't believe it. It's horrible. Poor boy. What are we going to do?" Suzanne replied as she wiped away her tears and tried to speak without her voice failing. "For now, tell him the truth and find him a place where he will be safe and well cared for. He will need a lot of love." "Of course, officer, and he'll get it. We'll take care of him." After talking to the police, Suzanne had the difficult task of telling Jake that his parents had died. He was devastated by the news and spent a long time grieving for his parents' death, but he was not alone. Through it all, Suzanne was by his side unconditionally. Suzanne decided to take care of Jake and become his legal guardian until he came of age. She didn't want him to end up in a child welfare office and with a family of strangers, so she filed for guardianship. She knew it would be complicated given her age and status as a single woman, but she was the only person Jake trusted and had no one else to turn to. "You are my family now, Miss Suzanne. I know my parents would have chosen you as a guardian if given the chance. You are an angel," Jake told her after their first year living together. "You are a blessing, Jake. Your parents knew it, and everyone who knows you knows it. You're extraordinary, and even though life hasn't made it easy for you, you keep going and are able to continue to feel love and gratitude. Being your family is a gift to me." Jake grew up with the pain of losing his parents in a tragic way, but lucky enough to have found someone like Suzanne to get him through it and move on with his life. He will never forget his parents and may never understand why they had to die in such a way and leave him alone. But that will not stop him from moving on with his life. His story is one of the saddest we have ever told. It does not have a happy ending, but it has the moral of knowing that even in the darkest moments, we can find the light with the help of the right people. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion and what this story has made you feel. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos shown at the bottom of the screen.